Good day, Amherstburg. It's Ron Giofu from the Rivertown Times, back on the airways of 107.9 FM CKBG The Burg with the Rivertown Times Week in Review. I'm flying solo this week. Laura's unavailable due to a personal matter, but she'll be back in studio next week. Leading off, we had the Briarswood Youth Camp Optimist Club fundraising dinner out at the River Canard Columbus Hall on Saturday night. They had a good turnout, raised about $1,600. It's the annual rib or chicken dinner, and all proceeds go to the camp. They're continuously fundraising out there. They have work to do, and they always need the assistance. They had a good turnout. Again, they raised about $1,600, so it's good to see. It was a good time had by all. I was out there, and I actually bought a ticket this year, and instead of just covering it, I had a nice chicken dinner. That was my meal of choice. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the music, the entertainment, and everything else that went along with putting together the dinner. And it's great work done by the volunteers with the Briarswood Youth Camp Optimist Club. Again, as we know, the campground is on Texas Road, and they're always working to put on programming and that sort of thing, and obviously maintain the grounds and take care of other expenses. And they recently wrapped up their Let's Make Briarswood Even Better campaign. They actually met the $10,000 goal again this year, so great job by them and all who donated. Again, fun times at the thanks to Briarswood out in River Canard last weekend. In case you're wondering when the True Festival is coming up, if you haven't heard, you'll find out in this week's RTT that it's been moved to summer, likely in June or July is what I'm being told by town tourism officials. We have another story on front page this week, and so make sure you check that out. The True Festival has been a staple in late January, but they're going to try to move it to a warmer weather month. Like they're combating some weather elements, and you never know what the weather's going to bring in January, and performers come in, and they can't always guarantee, they're going to have good, safe driving conditions, so that's why the town is saying they're moving it to a warmer weather month. As I say, June or July. The date has not been finalized as of yet, and we'll keep you abreast when they do make a final choice on when they're going to have it. It's going to be on one of the open-air weekends. So, again, make sure you check that out. But again, it's not going to be held in January, so if you do what I did and you go on the town's tourism website and check the calendar and you're wondering where it went, well, there's your answer. It's not canceled, it's just being moved. And again, it's June or July, final date to come. This week's RTT also featured a recent official plan meeting on the draft official plan. Actually, it was held a few weeks ago, and just because of the holidays and year in review and that sort of thing, the story itself got pushed back, but we got full details on what's going on with the town's draft official plan. That still has not yet been finalized. This is just the latest step in the plan. So we got an update on in this week's issue of the RTT, so make sure you check that out. And we also got a story about a local man who called himself a walking artist, Ken Johnston, from Philadelphia. Over the holidays, he was in at the Amherstburg Freedom Museum. It's quite an interesting and actually quite meaningful walk he was on. And it was his latest walk, a walk to freedom, as he's tracing Underground Railroad routes, the most recent of which was from Windsor to Dresden. And while in the area, he made a stop at the Amherstburg Freedom Museum and gave a talk and shared some information with the folks that turned out. He was also in Harrow, so make sure you check out the story for the full itinerary. But Ken Johnston, it was an interesting talk. I got to talk to him for a few minutes doing the interview, and quite a nice man. And again, we got the full story in this week's issue of the Amherstburg Rivertown Times, and that's in print and online on our website at www.rivertowntimes.com. The 202 Fort Malden Windsor Regiment Army Cadet Corps had their recent holiday dinner. We got full details on that in this week's RTT, so make sure you check that out. Thanks to the cadets for welcoming me to this holiday tradition, and the outcome of which is in this week's RTT and on the web. Of course, the cadets have long been a great youth organization in our community. Have done wonderful things, teaching leadership and various skills to local youth. In addition, they don't just have a holiday dinner. They meet throughout spring, summer, and fall. The winter, spring, and fall. They take summers off, but they meet weekly, every Wednesday night at North Star High School. I'm sure they would always welcome new recruits. I've been covering cadets for quite a long time now, actually. I've been in town for about 3 decades now, and I've covered the Cadet Corps in their various exercises, events, and activities, and pretty much a lot of things that they do, and they keep quite active. And the latest story on the cadets is in this week's issue of the Rivertown Times. I touched on Briarswood a bit earlier, and this was a big week for community groups as we printed our community group recaps in the January 14th issue of the Rivertown Times, and thank you to all 8 local churches and nonprofit organizations that responded, and we were able to get them all in this week. And so special thanks to Amherstburg Community Services, the Rotary Club of Amherstburg, again, Briarswood Youth Camp, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Sully's Giving Back, the Hope of St. Joseph's Shelter, Inc., and the Gibson Gallery. All of those 8 write-ups were submitted by the community and becoming an annual tradition for the Rivertown Times. We invite the local community groups and nonprofits and churches just to recap their past year and what they got planned for 2026. So again, we really appreciate it. Thank you to all the groups that helped us out and helped yourselves out by letting the community know what you're up to and what you've done and what you got planned. So 8 stories, all of which are in the January 14th issue of the Rivertown Times. We've got more to come next week. I was at the Brentwood Lottery draw this past weekend, and unfortunately for Amherstburg residents, no big winners from the Burg. Again, there was one of the winners was from Harrow, and we'll get something up on our website, Rivertown Times, during the course of the week, and we'll have more details coming up in next week's issue. We got another big announcement coming this Friday from Essex MPP Anthony Liardi. We'll find out more details on that. We'll have that in for next week, and we've got a lot of stuff on the go. It's really starting to pick up again out there. There's a bit of a holiday lull, as we all know. We're busy and working hard going into the Christmas season, and once we come out of it, it's a little bit slower, but we're picking it back up, and we're staying on top of everything we can there for you. When it pertains to sports, the sports schedules have resumed at the high schools and with the Amherstburg Admirals, and we'll start with the Admirals. They were in action on the weekend. Saturday night, they hosted the Lakeshore Canadians in a hard-fought matchup, but it was Lakeshore coming out on top of a 4-2 decision. And so we got the full story on page 11 of this week's RTT and on our website, rivertowntimes.com. So you make sure you check out all the Admirals action. One game that was played since the paper was put out, but before it hit the streets, that was last night in Essex. Of course, we had already gone to press with today's issue, but we can tell you that the Admirals fell short 5-3 to the powerful 73s team. Admirals fought hard, but unfortunately, it was for them at least. It was the 73s who came out on top again. That was a 5-3 score last night at the Essex Center Sports Complex. The Admirals have a pair of home games, but one is not at the Libro Center in the coming days. They are in Harrow, actually. They're the home team, but they're at the Harrow Arena on Thursday night, and they host the Blenheim Blades. That's at 7:30 p.m., and again, that Thursday night game is in Harrow. And they actually return to the more familiar home rink, the Libro Center, and that is Saturday night. They have a home game against the Dresden Kings. And again, both Thursday night at Harrow and Saturday night at the Libro Center in Amherstburg. Both games start at 7:30 p.m. So come on out, support your local Junior C hockey club. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. And you get to see some good hockey to boot. Speaking of action on the ice, both the boys and girls hockey teams at North Star High School returned to action. The boys team tied LeSource at home last week 4-4. But they fell short 6-5 a couple days later to the Riverside Stingers. That's the action that's featured in the paper. And again, it's a situation where there was a game played yesterday after the paper went to press. We can tell you that North Star went on the road to the WFCU Center in Windsor for a rematch against Riverside, and it was the Wolves pulling out a 7-3 decision over Riverside. Kay Drainville reportedly played well in net. Thanks to Glenn Holden for the report on that. Glenn is the head coach of North Star. And again, they defeated Riverside 7-3 yesterday and make up for a 6-5 loss in Amherstburg last week. The girls team played well in a couple of games last week. They went to Windsor. They played La Jeunesse and won 3-0. Not this past Monday, but the Monday before. It was last week. And last Thursday, they were at the Essex Center Sports Complex for a game against the Red Raiders. And Essex won that game 1-0, but you wouldn't know that North Star lost by the reaction of the coaches and the players. They were quite pleased with how the team played. Obviously, they would have liked to have won the game. Still, they played well. They come up against a good goaltender and a good team. They gave it their all. They played really hard, but fell short. The girls' team is back in action today. That's at the Libro Center. They have a 3 p.m. game against Erie Migration. And again, that's at 3 p.m. today, January 14th, at the Libro Center in Amherstburg, North Star hosting Erie Migration. And I can give a quick update on girls volleyball. The juniors and seniors were in action last night at North Star. The juniors went first, and they swept Tecumseh Vista Academy in 3 straight sets. And they played well and picked up another victory. The senior Wolves team followed immediately thereafter. They got off to a good start. They won the first set, but unfortunately they couldn't quite get over the hump in the second and third sets. They were very competitive in both, but Tecumseh Vista won both the second and third sets and won the senior girls match 2-1. Both teams in action on Thursday, but in Windsor, they will be playing the Massey Mustangs. And just a few things happening this weekend. The Gibson Gallery annual meeting is Saturday at 2 p.m. at the gallery. They'll be going over their events of the past year, and they have a special guest speaker, and that will be Alex Dale of Fort Malden National Historic Site. And again, that meeting's at 2 o'clock. I'll be covering the North Star Football award ceremony that's coming up this Saturday, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that. And want to give a shout out to the Marsh Historical Collection. Their Small Town Big Industry exhibit comes to the Gibson Gallery, starting with a reception on January 23rd. The reception itself on the 23rd is a paid event. Tickets are $25. Tickets available at the Marsh Collection, which is in the Heritage Square Plaza at 80 Richmond Street. And following that, the exhibit opens on the 24th. The exhibit itself, it runs weekends, and that event is free. The exhibit itself is free. Only the reception carries a charge. And we have more details in community events in this week's issue of the Rivertown Times, as well as an ad. So make sure you pick up your Rivertown Times or check us out online. That about wraps it up for me, I think. Just a shout out to our driver Louise for she's going around stocking up newspaper boxes in stores, not just Amherstburg, but Essex, Harrow, and LaSalle. So make sure you pick up your print edition. And if you run into a box that's run short during the course of the week, give us a call, 736-4175, and I'll be glad to go out and restock that box. This happens somewhat frequently because apparently we're a popular product out there. A lot of people tend to pick up the paper if they're not already reading us at rivertowntimes.com. So, and again, if we're also starting production shortly on the 2026 Amherstburg phone book. We haven't quite started work on it just yet, but when it comes to updating the listings, we will update your listing. If you know of somebody that needs to be deleted, if your address changed, or if your phone number has changed, or you just want out of the book, or you know somebody that was left town and needs to have their listing removed, again, give us a call, 519-736-4175, or you can email me at the Rivertown Times office at mail@rivertowntimes.com. Again, my email address to have your phone listing changed is mail, M-A-I-L, @rivertowntimes.com. Thank you to Terrence here in the studios of 107.9 FM The Berg. Once again, helping us out and doing a great job making sure we sound good when we go on the radio. Thanks to him and the fine folks here at CKBG. And we'll be back, Laura and I will be back on the airwaves here at 107.9 FM next Wednesday at 12 noon and the replay at 4:30 p.m. Thanks again, Amherstburg, and see you next week.